In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, all President of Allah, peace and blessings be on the Prophet and his family and companions. May Allah have a very good morning and afternoon. Welcome in today's event that will talk about some of the culture and heritage of the Tatar land history. Let's welcome Dr. Magdalena Zawatna and Dr. Carolina Radloska. I hope I pronounce it well. We'd like to thank them both for being with us, and we look forward to hearing what they are going to present today and to the discussion and interaction with the audience. I'd like to thank the moderator of the session and our colleague Dr. Daniel. He is a researcher at the King Faisal Center for Research Islamic Study, and he is the idea owner. I'd like also to thank our colleagues, the ladies and gentlemen, for organizing and for following up from the organizational communication, research department, and support department, or all the colleagues who helped prepare this event, as you see. Quickly speaking, I'd like first to remind you that the center, since established more than 40 years ago, is keen on continuing the message of the late King Faisal, which is the communication and knowledge transfer between Saudi Arabia and all other countries. It's also a knowledge-based platform that collects cultured, educated, and policymakers in order to exchange ideas in all of the philosophical, historical, social, and economic, and political fields in order to enrich the cultural and scientific scenes nationally and internationally. A year ago, it is important to mention that the center started the Arabic narrative cultural and intellectual center that aims at explaining the rooting historical role of the Arabian Peninsula, providing a knowledge that will help build a narrative about Arabs and to enhance a deeper understanding of our present and our past, to enhance the bridge between us and the surrounding societies and civilizations, to be able to be the creators of our narrative as Arabs. In addition to other programs to change the knowledge, the center organizes a number of workshops and webinars on different topics, and it is important that these lectures and events will be a bridge between us, so that we look forward to receive your feedback and suggestions, and that you will always be attending and interacting with the center. We also encourage direct communication with the lecturers to continue the discussions later. Also, we'd like to receive your feedback and interaction on the social media platforms on the topic of this event. First time for me to hear that Tatar were in Poland, and it was from Dr. Daniel, and I found myself on a story that needs to be told. Tatar arrived Poland in the 14th century as mercenaries for the Polish military in the beginning. After that, they merged and integrated in the society in Poland. And regardless of although they faced a lot of challenges, but they could keep their own unique heritage. In today's lectures, we will shed the light on the origins and the integration of the Tatari inhabitants in Poland and their roles in society, and also on how they preserved their religion and their traditions, and how they merged in the Polish society, adaptation, continuation, and integration without melting. And the lectures will be intense, and we hope that it will give us a glimpse of the long and complicated relation between a minority of Polish traditions and a dominating Catholic culture. Before I give the floor to Dr. Daniel, the event will be moderated in English. If you need translation into Arabic, the headsets are available. Thank you very much. And now the floor is for Dr. Daniel to introduce the two speakers and more details on the topic.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone, good afternoon everyone. I'm very glad to be here to share a part of the heritage, Polish heritage, with the Saudi audience. And actually, I'm just going to make a very short introduction to what we are going to hear later, a lecture on a history, the way of living of the Polish Tatar community in Poland. First, I was very happy when Dr. Abdallah got interested in the topic of Polish Tatar community. But at the same time, I was a little bit puzzled because I didn't know what is the best way to convey the message, to tell the story of Polish Tatars to the Saudi people. So we thought that maybe it would be a good idea to organize an exhibition of the photographies. Maybe that should be a concert of a group who would come over here and play the concert. But then I realized that we have to contextualize it a little bit. So we have to give a lecture or bring Tatari people here to tell the story themselves. But that seemed at the time a little bit challenging. So finally, we came up with an idea to produce a short documentary, 30-minute documentary, which actually consists of all these elements I just mentioned. So we have a little bit of Tatar music, folk Tatar music in the documentary. We have interviews with representatives of Tatar community. And afterwards, we decided also to organize 2 lectures by our distinguished guests here from Jagiellonian University and from the Białystok University. And also there will be an opportunity for our audience to ask questions and to ask for further details in a Q&A session after the lectures. So without further ado, I would like to invite you to watch the documentary together with us. Thank you so much. And can I ask somebody to switch off the lights, please?
وفقاً لتعداد عام 2011 في بولندا، أعلن 1916 شخصاً بأن جنسيتهم تترية. استيطان التتار ذو طبيعة عسكرية بدأ في أراضي دوقية ليتوانيا الكبرى منذ نهاية القرن الرابع عشر. كان أسلاف التتار مهاجرين أو لاجئين من المناطق التي احتلتها القبيلة الذهبية وشبه جزيرة القرم. فقد التتار في بولندا معرفة لغتهم الأم، لكنهم ظلوا مخلصين للدين الإسلامي. اليوم يتم تجميعهم في 6 بلديات. تعد بوهينيكي وكروشنياني المركزين التاريخيين الوحيدين لاستيطان التتار داخل الحدود الحالية لبولندا، مع المساجد والمزارات التاريخية المحفوظة. يعود تاريخ مسجدنا إلى عام 1782 بالنسبة للأسس والبنية. له مظهر متميز، فهو يشبه أكثر كنيسة أرثوذكسية محلية على شكل صليب، لأن الجندي التتري لم يتمكن من البناء. لقد كلف السكان المحليين بالعمل وقد قاموا به وفقاً للسماء والعرف البولندي. يتكون المسجد دائماً من عنصرين، هذا هو المحراب خلفي والذي يشير إلى اتجاه الصلاة نحو مكة. يوجد أيضاً مكان مرتفع في المسجد، إنه منبر للوعظ. في المساجد تعلق على الجدران المهيرات، وهي اقتباسات زخرفية من القرآن الكريم. في المساجد صور الأشخاص والحيوانات محظورة. تم بناء هذا المسجد عام 1873، أي أن عمره 150 عاماً بالضبط هذا العام. يتكون كل مسجد بشكل أساسي من غرفتين، غرفة منفصلة حيث تصلي النساء، ولكن هنا في هذا المكان الذي نحن فيه يصلي هنا الرجال فقط. الخدمة في المسجد تتم باللغة العربية فقط. يتم إلقاء الخطبة باللغة البولندية. الخدمات هنا ليست كثيرة كما يقال. كل أول جمعة الشهر بعد ظهور القمر الجديد تم تطوير التقويم ويتم وضع علامة على جميع الأيام التي تحدث فيها الصلاة في هذا التقويم. كل مكان جيد للصلاة. كقاعدة عامة يتم ذلك غالبا في المنزل. يمتلك معظم الناس سجادا في المنزل يصلون عليه. عندما تكون هناك صلوات الأعياد الإسلامية يوجد الكثير من الأشخاص هنا. لا يمكن استيعاب الجميع في المسجد، ولكن يوجد الكثير من الأشخاص هنا في الفناء. في بولندا ليس من المعتاد داء المؤذن من برج صغير، لأن هذا البرج يحل محل المئذنة. في بوهينيكي أو في مدن أخرى حيث لا يوجد سوى عدد قليل من الأشخاص، معظم الناس لا يسمعون نداءات المآذن على أي حال. يشمل المجتمع الديني في بوهينيكي مدينة سوكوكا وجزءا من بياويستوك، دومبروفا، بياويستوتسكا وسوخوفولا، وهناك بعض العائلات من جميع أنحاء بولندا ويأتون إذا كانت هناك خدمة عيد. وهناك خدمتان من هذا النوع يأتون من جميع أنحاء بولندا وأحيانا من الخارج. الحاج الذي عاد إلى البلاد هذا هو الشخص الذي عاد بلا خطيئة، نقي، وينبغي أن يكون قدوة للآخرين لبقية حياته ويظهر لهم كيف ينبغي أن يعيشوا. أتباع جماعة بوهينيكي شاركوا بالفعل في رحلة الحج، وبعد ذلك يذكرون كيف كان الحج.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
دور رجل الدين هو في المقام الأول تقديم الخدمات وخدمة أبناء الرعية والاحتياجات المتعلقة بالحياة اليومية بأحداث الحياة المختلفة، مثل ولادة الطفل أو الزواج أو الدفن في نهاية الحياة. ويقوم أيضا بإجراء دروس لتعليم الأطفال. ليس لدينا الكثير من الوقت لتقديم علوم الإسلام برمته، لذلك قررنا أن نعتمد بشكل رئيسي على أساسيات القواعد، كما نقوم بتعليم كيفية قراءة القرآن. نحن لا نعلم اللغة العربية نفسها كلغة عربية، ولكن نعلم أساسياتها التي تساعد لاحقا في دراسة اللغة العربية. بالإضافة إلى عناصر من تاريخ الإسلام وتاريخ النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. الزكاة هي شكل من أشكال الجزية التي يجب على كل مسلم أن يؤديها بشرط أن يكون لديه أموال لا يستخدمها لمدة سنة ويعطيها للفقراء والمحتاجين. ليس لدينا مثل هذه المؤسسة كما هو الحال في البلدان ذات الأغلبية المسلمة لتوزيع هذه الزكاة وتوزيع هذه الأموال. نحن نعمل على حل هذه المشكلة داخليا. الأذان مثل المعمودية في المسيحية، حيث يتم إعطاء اسم للطفل. لن يتم استخدام هذا الاسم هنا على الأرض فحسب، بل سيظل هذا الاسم أيضا مدعوا أمام الرب. الكلمات الأولى التي يجب أن يسمعها الطفل هي الأذان والإقامة، لذلك يوصى بأن يتم ذكر هذه الكلمات للأطفال في أسرع وقت ممكن. تقليدنا هو أن تجتمع العائلة للاحتفال مثل المعمودية، وكما يقول أئمتنا الأقدم نفعل ذلك ليكون الطفل أكثر هدوءا لأن لديه اسماً خاصاً به، وقد سمع الأذان وسيعيش بشكل أفضل وينمو. وهذا هو الشكل الذي تبدو عليه تقاليدنا. الصوم هذا أمر مضحك، هو صوم صارم وصعب، لكن التتار ولو بأشياء أخرى ليس من الضروري أن يلتزموا بها. الصوم هو مظهر من مظاهر الإيمان رغم أنه الأصعب. بالنسبة للصلاة وغيرها فهذا أمر مختلف، ولكن يجب الالتزام بالصيام بصرامة طوال الشهر لإثبات أنك مسلم حقيقي. توجد أماكن قليلة مثل كروشنياني. بصرف النظر عن التترية، المقبرة هي واحدة من أقدم المقابر النشطة في بولندا. يرجع أقدم شاهد قبر تم العثور عليه إلى عام 1699. لدينا حالة نصب تاريخي عندما يتعلق الأمر بالمسجد والمزار. إحدى مقابر القرية مغلقة منذ القرن 18 والثانية نشطة خارج القرية وأكبر من المقبرة في كروشنياني، وهي أكبر مقبرة في بولندا. وبشكل عام لا يوجد في بولندا سوى 3 مقابر في بوهينيكي وكروشنياني ووارسو. تبدو القبور القديمة من القرنين 8 و19 مختلفة تماما عما هي عليه اليوم. آنذاك تم الدفن بهذه الطريقة: وضع حجر أكبر في الرأس وحجر أصغر في القدمين، والقبر محاط بالحصى في 3 صفوف. العديد من القبور القديمة لا تحتوي على كتابات. تحمل بعض هذه الشواهد نقوشاً محفورة في رؤوسها، عادة باللغة الروسية، لأنها كانت فترة التقسيم. كما تقام الصلاة عند القبور، يجب دائما ذكر الشخص المتوفي واسم والدته خلال تلك الصلاة. ومن هنا يكتب غالبا اسم المدفون ثم دائما ابن أو ابنة فلان. يمنع حرق الجثث، ولا يجوز دفنها في طبقات، ولا يجوز دفن شخص جديد في قبر موجود مع شخص آخر. سيكون هناك دائما شخص واحد يرقد وحيدا إلى الأبد. وفي أيام العطلات الكبرى يجتمع هنا أكثر من 100 شخص. عندنا عيد رمضان الفطر 3 أيام، ثم نشكر الله على الصوم في الصلاة. نتبادل الأمنيات بين بعضنا البعض. يتم منح الأطفال المال والحلويات، وهناك أيضا الاجتماعات العائلية. هناك عادة لطيفة بين التتار: نحن نستأجر مطعما في بياويستوك ونستمتع بما يسمى بحفلة التتار. ولا أكون صادقا، في مثل هذه الحفلات يمكن للشاب التتاري أن يبحث عن نصفه الآخر. العيد الثاني هو عيد الأضحى 4 أيام، وهو عيد ذبيحة تخليدا لذكر النبي إبراهيم الذي أراد أن يذبح ابنه. يتم ذبح الثيران أو الكباش بعد الصلاة في المساجد، ويتم تقسيم اللحوم بين الفقراء. في يوم الكفارة نصلي بعد غروب الشمس لبدء الصيام. هناك تراويح منتصف الصوم، ومن ثم لدينا عادة تناول الإفطار معا. ليلة القدر رأس السنة، مولد النبوي، وفي تلك الأيام نأتي إلى هنا. كل الخدمات بشكل أساسي، سواء الجمعة الأولى أو عيد، دائما هناك وقت للحلويات. يتم تقديم الحلوى كتضحية من قبل الأفراد بنية خاصة بهم. بعد الصلوات والخطبة الإمام يصلي بما يسمى سادوغا. يصلي واقفا أمام الحلوى، ثم علينا توزيع كل شيء على جميع الأشخاص. هذه هي الحلوى والكعك، ويمكن أن تكون شوكولاتة أو فواكه أو خبز حلو مع الزبيب. الآن هذا اتجاه عام في الأمة. ابحث عن جذورك وتقاليدك وثقافتك. الناس يبحثون ولم يعودوا يخجلون، حتى أنهم يبحثون عن التتارية. زارني السيد كشيتشوفسكي ذات مرة، وجدت في الأرشيف أن في أحد القرون تحولت أسرته إلى المسيحية، فسأل: هل تعرف من أنا؟ لا أعرف، أنا كاهن كاثوليكي. كل دين أو أمة تستمد من بعض الثقافات وقت سابق. التتار قبل الإسلام كانوا شمانيين. كان عندنا هناك الكهنة والتمائم، والآن التميمة بها دعاء من القرآن، ولكنها تتعلق بالعصور القديمة. بعض الأشياء من التقليد الشاماني. لدينا مطبخنا التتري، مطبخ السهوب الذي يعود أصله إلى الثقافة الصينية. نحن لا نأكل لحم الخنزير، والمطبخ التتري متعلق بتاريخنا وتقاليدنا. لدينا غناء ورقص تتري خاص بنا. هذا هو الإسلام ممزوجا بفلكلورنا وتقاليدنا. إنها توزيع سادوغا وهذه العادات والتقاليد المختلفة. هذا هو إسلامنا، ولكن الإسلام المتعلق بتقاليدنا وثقافتنا المختلفة عن دول أخرى. كان هناك القليل من الوعي الديني في الجمهورية الشعبية البولندية. أئمتنا لم يذهبوا إلى أي مكان للدراسة. في الجمهورية الشعبية البولندية يمكنك رؤية صورة على القبور. لا ينبغي أن يكون لدينا صورة للإنسان. اليوم لا توجد صور مرة أخرى. كنت أسكن في سوبراش، ولكن الأعياد كنا نأتي إلى كروشينياني. كان لدينا أطفال، وبعد الخدمة كنا نأتي إلى منزل جد زوجي، وكان المنزل فارغا، وأهل زوجتي كانوا قد توفوا. لم يكن هناك سوى منزل، وكان من الصعب الدخول إليه بسبب كثافة الأشجار. ولكن عندما كانت هناك أعياد كانت العائلة تجتمع ونذهب جميعا إلى منزل الجد. جهزنا الطاولة والكراسي، وكان لدى الجميع شيء ليأكلوه. عند التواجد في هذه الاجتماعات ومراقبة ما يحدث في بوهينيكي وكروشينياني، اكتشفت أن كل هذا يختفي، وأن التتار قد انتشروا وتركوا تلك القرى واستقروا في المدن. ثم جاء الوقت وبدأوا بالسفر إلى الخارج. أنا أتحدث عن شبابنا التتار، وكان أطفالنا أيضا مثل هؤلاء الشباب. وكان في ذهني منذ البداية عندما كان الأطفال صغارا أنه يجب القيام بشيء ما للأجيال القادمة حتى لا تتلاشى، لأنه جاء وقت بدا أننا فيه باعتبارنا تتار سوف نختفي وسط كتلة البولنديين، وهو ما نحن عليه أيضا. ولكن هناك ما يسمى بالهوية التي شعرت بضرورة الحفاظ عليها. وهكذا كنا وما زلنا التتار المسلمين. عندما جئت إلى هنا كنت مهتمة في المقام الأول بعائلتي وأطفالنا، لتعليمهم من هم ومن أين أتوا. الدين فقط، وبفضل الدين نجونا كما يقولون. لكن يتبع الدين الطعام، الأطباق التقليدية، أطباقنا، أطباق العيد الاحتفالية والتي لا تزال موجودة. أقنعت زوجي بفتح منزلنا للضيوف الذين يرغبون في المجيء إلى هنا. كوخ التتار، لكنني اكتشفت بأن باللغة التتارية يورت تتاري يعني كوخ التتار. لطالما حلمت ببناء خيمة يورت في كروشينياني، يورت حقيقي. زوجي الحبيب مثل التتر الحقيقي، لا يركب الخيل أبدا، ولكن عندما يقفز على الحصان يجيد ركوبه. اشترى المواد ورسم كل شيء وخاط خيمة، وبجانبها صنع بونشو هذه هي شارة القوة العسكرية التتارية. لم نقم باستضافة الأصدقاء في منزلنا فحسب، بل أيضاً الغرباء. منذ ذلك اللحظة فصاعداً أصبح بإمكان الضيوف التعرف علينا، ومن خلال عائلتنا التعرف على التتار. الأطباق التي نقدمها ومما تتكون، هذا هو ضميرنا. أحفادنا معنا، وعندما يذهبون إلى كروشينيانة يغنون بشكل جميل عن ذهابهم إلى كروشينيانة الحبيبة الخاصة بهم. كم هو جميل أن أذهب أنا وزوجي إلى هنا. في البداية لم تكن هناك أي سيارة تقريبا تتجه إلى كروشينيانة، والآن عندما نذهب تكون عائلتنا بأكملها هناك. لقد بنت بناتنا وأزواجهم منازلهم الخاصة، وقد ولد أطفالهم ويذهبون إلى المدرسة من هنا، وهذه هي حياتهم وهذه هي حياتنا، ونحن سعداء ونحن مسالمون. أتمنى أن يستمر ما بدأناه. قبل كل شيء نحن بولنديون. نحن البولنديون الذين نعرف جذورنا. يعيش في بولندا حوالي 2,000,000 شخص من ذوي الدم التتري، وأكثر من 80% من الناس يحملون جينات الشعوب الشرقية. هذا هو حالنا نحن البولنديون. بشكل عام يمكننا القول أننا نعمل بشكل طبيعي. نحن أوروبيون، في العادة نعمل أو ندير أعمالنا الخاصة أو نقوم بالأعمال اليدوية أو في المكاتب. ولكن عندما يتعلق الأمر بشؤون الحياة اليومية فقد تكون هذه الأمور مختلفة قليلا، لأننا نصلي بشكل مختلف. في الوقت الحالي نأخذ أحفادنا إلى دروس الدين، ونأخذهم إلى دروس الرقص والغناء فرقة بونتشوك تاتارسكي. اسمي يانوش، ولكن خلال الأذان سميت بيحيى. لقد ولدت في عام 1971 في أيام الشيوعية، وعلى الرغم من ذلك حاول الآباء والأجداد إعطاء أطفالهم أسماء تترية أو إسلامية، مثل جميل أو جميلة أو أمير. الأسماء المرتبطة بالإسلام بما في ذلك الأسماء القديمة مثل إبراهيم ويعقوب أو موسى. وهذا هو ما يميزنا. تنحدر جدتي من عائلة بوبوافسكي، والتي حصلت على أرض من قبل يان الثالث سوبيسكي، وأبي جيمبيتسكي، وقد جاء من منطقة كريس الحدودية من هوروديش بالقرب من نوفوغرودك. جاءت جدتي وإخوتها إلى بولندا لأنها تزوجت تتري من وارسو شارك في الحرب، وكان لديهم فكرة للعيش في وارسو، لكن جدي اختفى أثناء الحرب. بعد الحرب كان هناك 300 نسمة و100 تتار، لكنهم انتقلوا إلى المدن، إلى بياوستوك وسوكوكا. عادت اليوم 7 عائلات مثلي أنا والسيدة جانيتا ورئيس البلدية السيد برونيسواف تالكوفسكي. إذن نحن نعود. تمكنا من ترميم المسجد والمقبرة وبناء المركز الثقافي، فعادت الحياة إلى القرية. كلانا تتار. زوجي من كروشينيانة وأسلافه من كروشينيانة أيضا، من عائلة بوغدانوفيتش. كانت كروشينيانة مستوطنة عسكرية. أجداده القدامى كانوا رجالا عسكريين، وحصلوا على هذه الأرض التي تقع خلف السياج من الملك البولندي يان الثالث سوبيسكي. أنا تتارية، وكان والدي عائدين إلى الوطن. لقد جاءوا إلى هنا، أبي من نوفوغرودك إلى تشيتشانكا وغوجوف، وأخته وعائلته إلى شتيتشين، وهؤلاء هم تتار نوفوغرودك. كانت والدتي من عائلة بيراشيفسكي وعائلة بوترجيتسكي. استقرت أسرهم بعد الحرب في غدانسك وشتيتشين. عندما كنا نقضي إجازتنا وكانت هناك أعياد، ذهبنا لزيارة جدتي في غدانسك. وأين كان علينا أن نصلي؟ في منازلنا الخاصة. في كل مرة كانت الصلاة تقام في منزل مختلف. الغرفة الأكبر كانت مفروشة بهذه المناسبة بالسجاد. عندها جاء الإمام، والذي كان هو عمي بكير ياكوبوفسكي. وعندما أصبحت امرأة بالغة كان بإمكاني المجيء إلى هنا بنفسي من أجل أن أزور كروشينياني وبوهونيكي. كانت هناك اجتماعات في سوكوكا تم تنظيمها من قبل أساتذة أجروا أبحاثا حول التتار. لقد كتبوا كتبا ودعونا. جئنا إلى هنا أيضا مع أختي وابنة عمي. كان هذا أول اتصال لنا مع سكان كروشينياني ومع المسجد. أنا سليل مباشر للعقيد ساموئيل كشيتشوفسكي الذي تمركزت وحدته العسكرية هنا عام 1679. آخر أفراد عائلة كشيتشوفسكي في بداية القرن التاسع عشر. كان لديه ابنتان، إحداهما لم تنجب والأخرى تزوجت من تالكوفسكي، ومن هنا جاء اسم تالكوفسكي. لكن عائلة تالكوفسكي هي عائلة كبيرة جدا التي كان لديها أراضٍ وثروة ضخمة في منطقة بيلاروسيا الحالية على الحدود الليتوانية، وهذا هو المكان الذي تنتمي إليه عائلتي من جهة والدي. ألقاب النبالة التي نتمتع بها هي ألقاب منحها لنا الملك يان الثالث سوبيسكي بعد الاستيطان العسكري التتري في كروشينياني، حيث حصلنا على الأرض والألقاب النبيلة والامتيازات على شكل إمكانية بناء مسجد، تنظيم مكان دفن، مقبرة أو مزار. لكن كان على كل عائلة أيضا إرسال جندي مسلح على ظهور الخيل. كانت هناك وحدة تحت أمر الملك. مثلا في عام 1683 شاركت الوحدة في معركة بركان. امتنانا لها ذهابا إلى مجلس النواب قام الملك بزيارة جنوده وتناول العشاء معهم في المكان الذي أعيش فيه حاليا. لقد كانت هناك قرى ياوغورتسي، ميتوبا، ووجاني، تلك القرى المجاورة التي كانت هنا بالقرب من كروشينياني. أعيش في سوكوكا منذ ولادتي. أنا من أبوين مسلمين. أنا مسلمة 100%. درست في فرنسا في المعهد الأوروبي للعلوم الإنسانية قسم الشريعة الإسلامية. بلدياتنا ليس فيها الكثير من المسلمين ولا يمكنها دعمي كإمام، لذا فإن وظيفتي كإمام تعتبر وظيفة اجتماعية بدون مرتب. للأسف أفعل شيئا مختلفا تماما كل يوم. أنا سائق محترف في وسائل النقل العام. يمكنك القول إنه منذ البداية كانت هناك زيجات مختلطة وما إلى ذلك، والظاهرة ما زالت موجودة أيضا اليوم. ومع ذلك كان كبارنا يشجعوننا دائما على أخذ زوجاتنا وأزواجنا من الدين الإسلامي. هناك تحولات إلى جانب أو إلى آخر، أي إلى الإسلام أو إلى المسيحية، لأنه لدينا أيضا الأرثوذكسية، وتظل النية متروكة لهم. كما قال محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم: كل عمل متعلق بالنية. على سبيل المثال، أحد أبنائي متزوج من امرأة تترية وهي امرأة مسلمة، آخر من مسيحية. ألعب البريدج، وفريقنا يضم أعضاء من الكاثوليك، أرثوذكس، وأنا من أصل تتري. إنها ليست مشكلة بالنسبة لنا. منذ البداية عشنا معا في هذا المكان، ولم نعش بعيدا عن بعضنا البعض، بمعنى الكاثوليك لأنفسهم، والأرثوذكس لأنفسهم، والتتار لأنفسهم، واليهود لأنفسهم. لا، لقد عشنا معا. بدينا روابط متينة مع بعضنا البعض، وكنا نزور الآخرين في الأعياد متمنين التهاني لبعضنا البعض. هنا في كروشينياني لم يكن لدى الناس الوقت للعمل، لأنه كان هناك عيد طوال الوقت، أعياد يهودية أو كاثوليكية أو أرثوذكسية أو تترية. أتذكر عندما كنت صغيرا، عندما جاء عيد الميلاد كنا نقضي العطلة أيضا في المنزل. قام آباؤنا أيضا ببناء شجرة عيد الميلاد لنا. علينا أن نتعاون معا. لم يكن لدينا أي خلافات دينية أو عرقية هنا من قبل. في وقت ما أيضا سافرنا مع حاخام وكاهن أرثوذكسي. سافرنا نحن الثلاثة إلى جميع أنحاء بولندا. لقد كانوا يمزحون بأنه الثالوث الأقدس. وتحدثنا عن أدياننا، ولكل منا دوره الخاص. أجبنا عن أسئلة محددة، كل بطريقته الخاصة. يجب إرسال هذه الرسالة إلى كل الأشخاص في جميع أنحاء العالم. دعونا نستمع لبعضنا البعض، ودعونا نحاول أن نفهم بعضنا البعض. من المحتمل أن يكون هذا هو الحل لجميع مشاكلنا.
Thank you very much for watching the documentary. I hope you enjoyed that. And to give you some further insights into the history and the everyday life of the Tatar community in Poland, I will now invite our first speaker, Dr. Magdalena Zawrotna, who works as an assistant professor at the Jagiellonian University at the Department of Arabic Studies of the Institute of Oriental Studies. She also studied Arabic language in Cairo at the university there, and she delivered a thesis entitled Linguistic Etiquette and Taboo in the Language of Young Egyptians. Dr. Zawrotna, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen. Okay, is that okay? I would like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to be here and speaking before such a noble audience. This is extremely important for me for personal reasons, to be here and to speak to talk about Tatars in Saudi Arabia, because this brings together different threads of my personal and professional life, such as the fact of being a wife and a mother of Tatar descendants, and also because of my education as an Arabist and my profession. I would like to start this speech by giving a short historical outline on the Tatar settlement in Poland. So there will be some pictures. And they will be loosely related to my speech. So the first stage of Tatar settlement in the lands of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania is barely recorded in the chronicles. We know that probably starting from the first half of the 14th century, refugees from the Golden Horde settled in these areas. At that moment in the history, there was a process of Islamization in the Golden Horde, and there was a great pressure on the followers of the old shamanistic religion to convert to Islam. That's why those who wanted to stick with the old religion would, to some extent, forced to escape and they had to seek refuge in the lands of pagan Lithuania. However, when it comes to the Muslim Tatars and their population, they appear on Lithuanian lands only during the reign of Great Duke Vytautas at the end of 14th century. So that was the time when the Golden Horde was already Muslim. The first mention of Tatar settlement comes from the description of the journey of Burgundian knight Gilbert de Lannoy, who traveled through Trakai at the beginning of 15th century. He wrote about the large population of Tatars in this place, and he called them Saracens, and that meant Muslims. From the very beginning, Tatars benefited from privileges. They were guaranteed freedom of religion. They had personal security. They received lands with the obligation of performing military service. So they were usually settled near the main political centers of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, such as Trakai, Vilnius, Kaunas, Navach Rudak, or Grodno. The reason for that was that the troops were constantly at prince's disposal. Also, the Prince Vytautas tried not to locate Tatars too close to the eastern border of the country, so they could not connect with the enemies and join the hordes attacking Lithuania. There is a point in history in the end of 17th century, the so-called Lipka rebellion, when there was a conflict in Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It was caused by failure to pay wages to the Tatars for their military service. So it resulted in their joining the Sultan's army during the Polish-Turkish war in 1672, but it was for a short time, and many of them returned in 1673 and were granted lands by the Polish king Jan III Sobieski, mostly in Lithuania. And this is the beginning of what I called here the military settlement. This is the beginning of the appearance of a specific type of settlement where the entire army unit with the commander and the officers stayed in one place. So similar grants took place, for example, during the times of Augustus II and Augustus III. So this is the type of settlement characteristic for Muslims and Tatars in Poland or in Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth at that time. During the times of World War I, the Tatar population was decimated, especially in the borderlands. There were human losses. Many villages, cemeteries, and mosques were unfortunately destroyed. And the same during World War II. It was very cruel to the Tatar community. Over 90% of Polish Muslims found themselves under the Soviet occupation. And Many of them were deported, especially the intelligentsia. They were sent to labor camps, and also a significant number were murdered. After the war, of almost 6,000 Polish Tatars, only around 2,000 came back to Poland and resettled in these areas. They created new religious communities, especially in western territories such as Gorzów and Gdańsk, where they were sent. There also a new commune was created in Białystok, and currently it is the largest Muslim population in Poland, while Kruszyniany and Bohoniki have become the only religious communes with the historical mizars and mosques. So a few pictures from that time. Now, I'd like to say a few words about the religion, because it is really important. Thanks to Islam, many customs and rituals close to the Turkic people have been preserved in their community. However, there are some customs taken from both the pre-Islamic nomadic traditions and also from the local Christian population. Also, the significant distance from the Muslim communities from the east, and also the lack of Arabic language, led to the distortion of some main religious concepts. Maybe not main. The main concepts remained the same, but some customs definitely were distorted. And of course, religious concepts such as like the most important thing, the uncompromising monotheism, is still there, and also the 5 pillars of Islam. When it comes to prayer, instead of 5 times daily, this is the prayer in mosque. Polish Tatar tend to attend the prayers in the mosques on Fridays, or especially one Friday, first Friday a month. They take the prayers may be at home or in mosques, sometimes privately, sometimes in the commune. In a mosque, women pray separately. There's a place called Babiniec, which is a kind of women's gallery for the prayers. All believers need to leave their shoes at the threshold while entering the mosque, and men need to cover their head with hats or caps. When it comes to zakat, except for what we could see in the film, there is a specifically Tatar custom of dividing sadoga, which means sweets in general, all kinds of sweets, pastries, chocolate bars are distributed in the mosque, usually after the prayer or after the funeral. Almost every service ends with the ritual or the custom of sadoga. It, to some extent, resembles the blessing of water and food in Christianity, because before the sweets are distributed, they are blessed by the imam. When it comes to fasting, Tatars, especially today, they are very enthusiastic about it. And they tend to fast during the whole month of Ramadan, but the thing is they refrain from eating, not necessarily from drinking water or smoking, for example. One of the basic duties of every Muslim is, of course, pilgrimage to the holy cities of Islam. But it is subject to having necessary funds for travel, and so that's why only few Muslims from Poland had the opportunity to actually visit the holy city of Mecca. There are some descriptions of Tatar people visiting the holy places, and the oldest description is by a Lithuanian pilgrim from second half of the 16th century, and the author says that he decided to travel to Mecca because he was encouraged to do that by other Lithuanian Tatars who decided to go and take part in the pilgrimage. So that's why we know that as soon as 16th century they already did pilgrimage. However, most Tatars made pilgrimages to their own holy places. They were usually graves located in the cemeteries. Like, for example, the cemetery in Łowczyce, that was the most venerated place. It was believed that it had the power of healing people, healing the sick and disabled. So Tatar would go there. Also, there were some places venerated by other religions too, not only Muslims, but Christians and Jews too. So like the cemetery in Sieniawka, there were a grave to which they would come. So there was a mix of cultures actually. And it can be also seen in other cultural rites and customs. Like, for example, during the pre-war era, there was a custom for women who wanted to get pregnant to go to the cemeteries and tie red ribbon on juniper bushes that growing there in the cemetery. So that was supposed to help them. Okay, so when it comes to holidays and celebrating festivals and feasts, the most important holidays celebrated by Polish-Lithuanian Tatars are, of course, Ramadan Bayram, Eid al-Fitr, Kurban Bayram, Eid al-Adha, Ashura Bayram, also Mawlud Bayram, Al-Mawlid al-Nabawi, and the New Year. Every time after the prayers, everyone people wish each other well, and then they need to eat sadoga, usually made of some kind of pastries. After they return home, they eat breakfast, and they tend to go to the cemetery. Thank you. Thanks. They pray at the graves for the souls of the relatives, and they distribute sadoga again at the cemeteries. During holidays, they usually dress in festive clothes. They visit relatives, friends. In the evening, they organize parties. for example, during the feast of sacrifice, Kurban Bayram, after the service, Tatars sacrifice a bull or a ram, and it happens in front of the mosque. First of all, the animal is blessed by, or not the animal is blessed, but there's a prayer made by. Conducted by the imam, and then the animal is slaughtered. All the meat needs to be distributed among all the people present there, and the owner of the donor of the animal only take a part of this meat. And this feast lasts for 4 days. There's a tradition of azan. It's a rite of giving a newborn child a name. It usually takes place at the parents' home in the afternoon. The ceremony is attended by an imam and 2 witnesses, and also guests. The newborn is bathed and dressed like during a baptism. It's very similar. It is placed on a pillow. Of course, his or her head needs to face the holy cities of Islam. Then there's a table. On the table, there need to be white cloth, Quran, burning candle, bread, salt, and water. So again, this is very reminiscent of the local Christian traditions. The imam recites a prayer and pronounces the name to be given to a child. Then he, of course, places his index finger on his or her right hand and repeats Shahada, then Azan and Iqama. And of course, the rite ends with prayer. When it comes to the other rite, also related to the child, the circumcision is not practiced. It was completely abandoned. When it comes to wedding, here we have some pictures from Tatar weddings. They look just like Polish Christian weddings, sorry. The ceremony usually takes place in the bride's parents' house. With the participation of imam, there are 2 witnesses and guests. In front of the house, the bride's relative welcomes the guests, and there's also bread and salt. So these are the tradition that we have in Poland, also the Christian traditions. There's also the custom of showering a couple with grain to bring them luck, wealth, and happiness. The table is covered with a white tablecloth. There's water, there's bread and salt. So we can see that all those traditions are very similar in Poland. During the wedding, the bride and the groom, they need to face Mecca. And the imam asks the fiancé how much money he would locate for compensation in the event of divorce. So the number is, of course, written in the marriage contract. There's also something called hareming the bride, which means that the bride is veiled. Although in Poland and in Polish community, there's no custom of veiling and covering hair by women. After the wedding, there is people go to the bride's room and bride's house, and then there's a kind of symbolic obstacles on their way. So people make those obstacles, and they need to receive small money or a small gift in order to be led to continue their way. When it comes to the funeral, so now we go to the funeral. Here are some pictures from the funerals. There's of course a cult of death manifested in form of visiting the cemeteries during the holidays. So there are prayers at the cemeteries, and there are some funeral rites. They bear some traces of pre-Islamic religion of nomadic Turkic people, but also Christian customs that, of course, were present in the Tatar environment. So after the death, there's a ritual washing of the corpse. Then the body is wrapped in white cloth, and before the burial, prayers are read by candlelight throughout the night. There's the concept of making up for missed prayers and missed fasting during Ramadan. So the people gathered there try to do that, and sometimes people were even hired to pray for the sins of the deceased person. Now we can see some more pictures. Okay, let's now move to the material culture, and I'd like to say some words about the mosques. The first chronological mention of mosques in the lands of Grand Duchy of Lithuania comes from the 16th century. It was in the Treaty on Polish Tatars. The anonymous author of this work emphasized that they were very simple and even poor. They were built by local carpenters, and those built by Orthodox people resembled more Orthodox churches, whereas some of them were built by Jewish masters, and they looked just like the surrounding synagogues, because the environment was multicultural and there were many religions. So, because the density of Muslims in Poland is not great, there was never the custom of using muezzin's voice to call for a prayer. But there was a custom of muezzin going in the street and calling for prayer. It was abandoned at some point in the history. The interiors of the mosques were also very modest. Most often they consisted of two parts: a separate compartment for women, the gallery, and another place where prayers were held. I'm not gonna speak more about the mosques, because we have another speaker later. I'll just say that during common prayers in the mosque, the imam stood in front of the mihrab, of course facing Mecca. Minbars in Lithuanian mosques were usually made of wood, and they were decorated with wooden roof or a canopy. So they were the only decorative element in the mosques. During the interwar period, there were 17 mosques throughout Poland. And now there are two historic Tatar mosques in the eastern part of the Białystok voivodeship. I would like you to see the collection of pictures. They are drawings or paintings depicting mosques in this area, the Kresy area in the former Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. So they look just like the local buildings, sacral buildings. Okay. Now there are two important mosques in Kruszyniany. The one that you could see in the movie. And Kruszyniany is an important place. It was given to the Tatar cavalry to Captain Samuel Krzeczowski by the king Jan III Sobieski. And we don't know when it was built, but we know that in 1840 the mosque was already there, and it has the right shape, the shape that we can see today. Most of the mosques were built of wood, and this one too. As you could see on the pictures, it has two corner turrets at the front and a third smaller at the back. Also, it has octagonal helmets decorated with thin crescents. There's another wooden mosque in Bohoniki. It is near Sokółka. It has completely different appearance. The temple was rebuilt in the 19th century. It's a small square building ending with a small minaret with a thin crescent on the top. It was actually a turret. It is a turret, not the real minaret. There is a separate room for women, and the mosque was devastated in 1939 by the troops stationed there. After the war, this temple, together with the mosque in Kruszyniany, was included in the list of national cultural monuments. Quite interesting custom of Polish Tatar is to hang Tatar regimental banners in mosques, so that is how we can see this military traditions. When it comes to mizars, in the interwar period, there were 68 Muslim cemeteries in the eastern territories of the Republic of Poland. Almost half of them at that time was already abandoned. There are no traces left of most of them. Now in Poland there are only 3 Muslim cemeteries, but they remain active. The local Christian population contributed to the devastation of some mizars because they needed the material for building, and graves were excellent building material. Also during the World War I, German soldiers used the cemeteries because they were built on hills, so they used them for battle positions. And sometimes they built fortifications out of tombstones. Tatar cemeteries were usually built on hills. And until the 17th century, there were no inscriptions used on tombstones. First inscriptions appeared probably under Polish influence in the second half of the 17th century. These inscriptions were really laconic, without any, sometimes they contained spelling errors. Usually Arabic script were used together with Arabic, Polish, and Belarusian languages. And fragments of the Quran were most frequently quoted. The inscriptions were usually on the large stone placed in the head, but never on the smaller stone that was in the feet. Now, literary heritage. This is something actually really interesting for me. The source of a Tatar religious source is their writing, preserved in the form of handwritten kitabs and something that they call hamails. Our Muslims call kitabs the religious books that contain a translation of individual chapters from the Quran. Also the stories from the life of the Prophet Muhammad, and sometimes explanations of the rituals, legends, and moralizing stories. These books are written in Arabic letters, but the texts are usually in Polish or Belarusian. Translations and explanations of the Quran into Belarusian started in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania at the end of 16th century. Kitabs were most often kept in mosques, and sometimes the wealthier Tatar landowners also had them at home. They were copied by old copists who knew at least Arabic script, not necessarily Arabic language, so they usually didn't understand the text that they copied. And I would say the basic source of religious knowledge for Tatar Muslims were Hamaiły, the so-called Hamaiły, prayer books. They were kept in almost every Tatar family's home, and they contained collections of prayers in Arabic and Turkish, as well as some in Polish and Belarusian, also explanations of religious rites in the larger Hamails. In addition to some kind of magical formulas and spells, sometimes recipes for treatments of disease, rashes, dream books, astrological tables, calendars. They had greater impact on the formation of the religious worldview of Polish Muslims. Practically speaking, anyone who knew how to read Arabic had access to them. Also, when there were important events, Tatar would wrote down everything in those Hamails, so they are also a great source of historical knowledge. So now a few of the Hamails. Okay. And kitabs. Okay. Now I move to everyday life at the end of my speech. the everyday life of the Muslim community in Poland today is marked to some extent by their resurgent religiosity. So I would say that there are two trends visible in this community, representing the two different approaches to the issue of religion and heritage. The first is based on the appreciation of their own distinctiveness, not only in the fabric of Polish society, but also in comparison to other Muslim peoples. These trends sometimes refer to the newly interpreted and newly integrated steppe or Asian tradition. The opposite is the opposite trend is the calls for religious renewal of Polish Muslims in the spirit of Arabic Islam, which is associated with the increasingly or better access to sources of religious knowledge. Tatars are organized in unions, but well, I won't talk about them much. If someone is interested, I can answer later questions. I would, at the end, only tell about the so-called Sabantui, which is a plow festival. It's not actually Polish tradition. It was first, maybe not first, but organized again for the first time in Podlasie in 2007. But this is a kind of tradition that is a point of integration of Polish Tatars. This is a Tatar and Bashkir tradition. It takes place after the end of Springfield work. It has a character of family and sports picnic, during which there are some plays, traditional wrestling battles, climbing a pole, and all those family activities. Now, at the end, I would like to show you some pictures, historical pictures from everyday life. And this one is new, it's from Sabantui. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Zawrotna, for your talk. And now I would like to invite you all for the short break. After that, I would like to take the floor. I would like Dr. Radłowska to take the floor and discuss a little bit more the specifics of Tatar Islam in Poland, so we can get some more insights into how it differs from what we can observe here in Saudi Arabia in terms of religious practices. And also, if there are any questions, that would be, I guess, very helpful for our speakers, to further develop the information they want to provide, and they want to show the full picture of the community, especially from the religious perspective. For now, the break, and I'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming back, and we're going to continue now with a second speaker, with a second short lecture by Dr. Karolina Radłowska, who is a sociologist, an anthropologist, and museum curator. She's also an assistant professor, researcher, and lecturer for the Department of Sociology at the University of Białystok. And Dr. Radłowska authored a PhD dissertation entitled Polish Tatars as a Long-Term Group, Continuity and Change. Dr. Radłowska, the floor is yours. Please.
First of all, I'd like to Thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor for me to be here today. And it's also a very emotional experience, so I'm a little bit stressed. Excuse me for that. And I'm not sure if it's good news for you or bad, but my presentation is going to be shorter than I planned, because my friend in a great way explained about a lot of things I wanted to talk, so there is no need to repeat it. Maybe I will just show you some interesting photos of nowadays life of Tatars. But in my speech, I would like to make a few references to the film we've already saw. I think it's worth mentioning some of the themes that appear in this very interesting material, and if I may, I'd like to congratulate to the authors of this very interesting film. This is because people who are not very familiar with specificity of Tatar culture and Tatar religious practices may be a little bit surprised by some of the themes, some of the expressions that appeared in this material. So the main topics I would like to talk about are not religion of Polish Tatars, but something, or maybe yes, something that the Tatars themselves called as our Islam, or something what some Polish scholars call Tatar Islam. So I will try to explain what is behind these mysterious terms. And another question I'd like to focus on is who are the Polish Tatars. So you saw in the film that the characters appearing in it identify first, and they identify themselves as Tatars, but in a moment they also identify themselves as Poles. But you also heard that they identify themselves as Muslims. So I will try to explain how these three factors interact in relation to the identity of the groups. And finally, I would like to talk about the relation between Polish Tatars and Polish society. So I would like to answer the question, what is it like to be a Muslim in the Catholic country? Does the group have to face Islamophobic sentiment? And if so, how does it deal with it? I hope that my speech will also answer the question very often asked by Polish and foreigner scholars and journalists as to how it is that such a small community as the Polish Tatars are living for centuries among Christian neighbors has managed to preserve its own religion, its own religious practices, and its own religion identity. So after this brief introduction, I will turn to the first topic, which is the religion of the Polish Tatars, but very shortly, without repeating this information you heard before. So as we all know, the Tatars are Sunni followers of a Hanafi school. But it should be noted, however, that the religion of this group also includes beliefs from pre-Islamic Turkish traditions, as well as some Christian elements borrowed from the local population. This fact should not be surprised, because when we talk about the specificity of Tatar Islam, we should remember that it was influenced by many factors. So in other words, the religion and religious practices of the Tatars living in Poland have been shaped by specific conditions. What were these conditions? So first of all, the Tatars live in a country where the Catholic religion has a special dominant position, and it's obvious, and all of you know that. I've got some, okay, sorry. It's my stress, sorry. Secondly, Tatars did not live in isolation, but coexisted with other groups. As a result of this coexistence, numerous processes of borrowing and assimilation can be observed among the members of the group. And if borrowing is something natural, the processes of assimilations are very much complicated. For individuals, assimilation is sometimes the only way to improve their social status, but we should also remember that, on the other hand, state policies sometimes force a group to assimilate to majority. From the group's point of view, assimilation always carries the risk of abandoning traditions and cultural elements, including religion. The policy of assimilation was implemented in Poland after the Second World War. I won't go into details, except to say that it was a time when the state authorities were trying to prove that Polish society was ethnically homogeneous. At that time, Tatar were officially referred to as Polish Muslims. It was a time when many people stopped practicing their religion and also stopped using their traditional name. So in the film you had, there was a character, there was a man who told that many Tatars used Tatar names. It was more complicated, so the official, many of them in that period of time used their Polish name in public and Tatar equivalent in private. So, for example, a woman officially used name Maria, but at home she was called as Miriam. Or, for example, a man was written in his ID the Stefan name, but in private he used the name of Mustafa. So, and it was very, very common. Very important factors of assimilation were also mixed marriages, which should be mentioned. I was really very stressed, so I covered the pages. I'm sorry, forgive me. Just a moment. I don't know what's happened. Okay, so the next slide. Very big impact on the Tatar religious practices had the border changes. They had a part after the Second World War. So the Tatar was divided into three. Once again, on the first map, you can see the map of the Poland before the Second World War, how it looked like. But on the second one, you can see the border changes after the 1945. It was a very important event in the history of Tatar, for calling by some scholars and the Tatar themselves as the end of the Tatar's life, because as my friend showed you before, and as you can see on the first map, main settlements of Tatar was concentrated on the east, and this part of Poland, after the Second World War, were incorporated to the Soviet Union, and the new Soviet Republic was established there, the Lithuanian Soviet Republic and the Belarusian Republic of Belarusian Soviet Republic, and after that started a great Tatar migration into Poland. But Polish authorities, first of all, directed them in the west of the Poland. Here we've got another map, because on the west, the border were changed, the border changed, and Poland incorporated on the west territory before the Second World War, inhabited mainly by Germans. So the Tatar were inhabited on the totally new territory. There was no before Tatar settlements, and it was a big issue. It was very, very difficult for them to rebuild religion alive, because, as Magda showed you, and many of mosques and many of these mizars remained on the border. A lot of imams remained in Belarusia and Lithuania. So there were no mosques, there was no cemeteries, there was no imams, and there were no religious teacher. So it was in some way a tragedy for the group. The Tatars living, Here you can see those what does it talk about. So on the first map, we can see those settlements before the war and how it was changed after the war. So you can see the new city inhabited by Tatars after 1945. The Tatars living in the oldest Tatar settlement in Bohoniki and Kruszyniany, you heard about these two villages in the film material, were in the best position, or even in better, more precisely, in better position than migrants from the west of Poland. But above all, those who lived in Białystok, because Białystok was the city where Tatars began to arrive, and which gradually became the most inhabited Tatar city in Poland. It was here that, for example, imams from Belarus come to rebuild their religious life after the World War II, because there was no condition for religious education. So, for example, one wealthy Tatar from Belarus bought a house in the center of the town and gave free access to his living room, where imam could teach Tatars' children religions. I will show you the photos from 50s. It comes from 50s, and it showed this private flat where we can see this religion lesson of Tatar children. So, as I said before, gradually Tatars from the west and north of Poland migrate and settled in Białystok because it was a big city. It was very easy to get work there. Next to Białystok are Bohoniki and Kruszyniany, those Tatars villages, and so they were very close to the members of their group. And what is the most important, the mosques and the mizars, Tatar cemeteries were situated there in nearby. And when I talk with Tatars, they always told me that it was the most important. So it was the reason why they decided once again, so maybe I will repeat it. So first, they need to leave their home in Belarusia and Lithuania after border changes. They go to the west and they start a new life, but they decided leave those places and go back to Podlasie region where those mosques and cemeteries are situated. So it was a very important reason to them, and it was very risky, as you can imagine. Białystok thus became the center of Tatar religious life, and in the 80s, Polish or city authorities or Tatar was given by Polish local authorities this small wooden house to serve as Moscow. Despite its expansion, it did not meet the needs of the group, as you can imagine. It was very small place, and it was stuck in the middle of the settlements, so there were no condition for a graduated number of Tatars living in this city to meet together, to pray together. In the 70s, 80s, Tatar started, received support from Saudi Arabia. There was a plan to build a Muslim center, a big Muslim center in Moscow and Quranic school in Białystok. Unfortunately, although this construction of the Moscow was started, that the plan was never realized. But as for this building on a picture, a few years ago, the renovation of this Moscow in Białystok was completed, and now it looks impressive, a differently way. This is the picture which shows how does it look like today. But maybe I should also mention about another Moscow in Poland, built in the 90s with the help of Saudi Arabia too, and it's situated in Gdańsk, in northern Poland. There was also a very big settlement, large post-war settlement of Tatars from Lithuania, from Vilnius. No, it disappeared. A lot of accidents. I'm sorry, I have not the picture. So. Stayed here on this Moscow. You saw today those photos many times. It's what I said before. It's explained in some way why these two villages in Kruszyniany and Bohoniki became as important places for the preservation of groups' religion and for integration and maintaining of the group cohesion. So until these days, those two villages with those two Moscows are the symbols of the Tatarness in Poland. So to sum up what's I said so far, the political factors or political changes have also very influenced the shape of the group's religious practices. Another thing that has significantly affected the shape of the group's religion practices is the fact that for a long time the Tatars had no contact with the main centers of Islam in the world. Travels or contact with Muslim center in the Middle East were very rare. Magdalena talked, for example, about this. Only very important persons, such as the Grand Mufti of Muslim Jakub Sienkiewicz, or very important imams, could afford it. Ordinary Tatars couldn't. Before going any further, I'd like to say a few words about the attitudes of the Tatars toward Arabic language. It was considered as sacred by Tatars, but was not widely known to them. So generally we can say that Tatars prayed in Arabic, but did not know what they were praying about. This knowledge was only possessed by educated imams and people who wrote the manuscript Magdalena showed for us. So this lack of contact also affected the group's level of religious knowledge and So I would like now to go back to the earlier time, to the first half of the 20th centuries, because the situation, to understand the situation of Tatars' religion is very important. Go back to the time when Poland regained its independence in 1918, which ended a very long period of partition of Poland. It was extremely important time for Tatar, because in 1925, in recognition of Tatar's military merits, Magdalena talked today a lot for us about how important was for Poland, and how important was for Tatar that they take part in many independence war on the Poland side. So in recognition of this military service, the Polish government approved the existence of the first Tatar religious organization, and it was extremely important event. And this organization is called nowadays, it exists, and it's called the Muslim Religion Union. And its main goals were to organize religious life and provide religious education. But unfortunately, this period, which the Tatar themselves called as the gold period, or gold age, was very soon interrupted by the Second World War. It's important to note that the milestone in improvement of this situation, I mean rebuilding of the Tatar religion life, was the getting in touch with the Muslim community, which began in 70s of 20th century, when students from Muslim countries began to arrive to Białystok and to other Polish cities. Thanks to the imams who arrived at that time, publication of Islam, the organization of religion lessons started. And it was for sure a time of religious revival for the group. Thanks to this contact, some young Tatars could afford to study the Arabic language, to attend a religious school in Europe and in Middle East. One of the imam on the film talked about it, that he was this lucky man who could afford that. But one of the students was Tomasz Miśkiewicz, who thanks to a scholarship completed the Arabic Language Institute for Foreigners in Saudi Arabia, secondary school, and higher theological studies in Islamic law and Islamic University in Medina. And after his return to Poland, he was appointed imam, and very quickly he took up the office of Mufti of Republic of Poland, and it was also a very important event which affected even nowadays religious life of the group. Thus, the long-standing lack of the contact with the world centers of Islam had a significant impact on the shape of the group's religious practices. But consequently, when we talk about the religious practices of the Tatars, we are dealing with the phenomenon of religious syncretism, a situation in which different religious elements exist side by side. A perfect example of this syncretism are the Moscow. As Magdalena showed us, they are not resemble typical Middle Eastern Moscow, but rather local churches, like this one in Kruszyniany, or Orthodox churches. And this is because, of course, they were built by local carpenters, using local materials and following local patterns. But as you saw in the film, the interiors of the mosques are already more subject to the rules. But what else characterizes them is the modesty and of the decorations, and they are quite poor and and very simple. This syncretism can be also seen in a Tatar cemeteries. You heard about it in a film, and you show on a very good presentation of my friend. But also in the attitude towards the cult of the dead, which is a very important part of the Christian practices. So Tatar very often visit the graves of the relatives, and there is one very controversial practice criticized by some of Tatar Muslims. They light candles of them, and it's also Christian borrowings. Perhaps more controversial has been the fashion you heard in a film, and you can see on a photo, also following Christian trends, the placing of photos of that on the graves. Cemeteries are visited during major holidays, Kurban Bayram, Ramazan Bayram. You heard about these two holidays. I will not repeat those information. I will just say that it makes those mosques and those two mizars very important social places that integrated communities. And I think that it's a key aspect in understanding the importance of these places, not only in a religious sense, of course it's very important, but also in a social sense. I will skip the part of the religion practices and the most important ceremony. Maybe I will just say about one thing which seems to be interesting. As Magdalena saw, this ritual or circumcision of male called sunyet by Tatars disappeared, but it disappeared because after the Second World War, because the main specialists were Jews. And as you know, after the Second World War, there were no Jews in Poland. So there were no experts who can do it. I will skip this part. Oh, okay. So now I would like to focus on the question. I will show you just a few photos before I go further. So you heard a lot about sadoga as the form of Tatar zakat. You heard that this kind of the Tatars share each other with sweets during the most important ceremony, as it looks like that on this photo presents how they shared with sweets. And here is a Kurban Bayram ceremony. And here you can see the azan Magda told about, and visiting the gravestone by Tatars. It was made in Lithuania. But as I told, I like to focus on the question of identity now, or to be more precisely try to answer who the Polish Tatars are. Scholars used to interpret them in two different ways. So sometimes they call those people as Tatars, sometimes as Poles. Those two those who say that Tatars are Poles pointed out that they spoke Polish, that they cultivate memory about their military service for Poland. They treat Poland as their own country. They lived in Poland. They have a Polish citizenship. But opponents of this position, however, pointed out their ethnic and religious distinctiveness. But today, there is completely different approach to the question of Tatar identity. It's undoubtedly the complex identity consisting of three elements. The first one is the religion, which means that they are Muslims. And you heard in the film that the woman said about herself, I'm Muslim, I'm 100% Muslim, he said. The second aspect of the ethnicity, identity of the group is ethnicity. It means the origin of the groups, the physical characteristic of the group, special eyes, and its culture, Tatar culture. The case of Tatar culture, it's a different aspect. But they also say about themselves that they are Poles, that they are Polish citizens, that their nationality is Polish. They are feel as Poles. They are very incorporated or into the Polish society. So as you can see, these three elements, being a Muslim and being a Tatar and being a Pole, these three aspects, three different areas exist together. So they not include each other. That's why this Tatars and the identity it's kind of complex identity based on these three factors I just pointed out. And last question: what is it like to be a Tatar or to be a Muslim and to live in Poland? This is quite difficult question. First of all, because the Tatar situation in their country of residence has been significantly influenced by the political situation. And I talk you about the assimilation during a communist time, as it was difficult for the group. Although it should also be remembered that among the numerous minority group living in Poland nowadays, the Tatars enjoy the greatest sympathy from the Polish authorities and from their Polish neighbors. This is for sure due to the military merits of the Tatars, their participation in the Polish army. The Tatar took part in almost all national liberation wars. The memory of these events are commemorated by the Tatar community even nowadays. And this is very often expressed by the Tatar. I heard this a lot. So, for example, we fought for this country. We gave our life for this country. Poland is our motherland. Poland is our fatherland. This kind of emotion have even special expression in Polish language. It's called by Tatar themselves as Polish patriotism. Also linked to this issue discussed about, it's a group strategy of building a very positive narration with the Roman Catholic Church. It's a very interesting factor. So the groups is involved in the so-called Christian-Muslim dialogue, which took on its institutional framework in 1997, and they are very cultivate memory of the Polish Pope, John Paul II, as a very important figure for the group. So the group very often stress how important person for the Tatars John Paul II was. But the attack on the World Trade Center and the terrorist attack in London, in Paris, and in Europe, in other cities in Europe, had a significant impact on public opinion in Poland. Anti-Muslim sentiments took the form of prejudice, but there was also one accident as the direct attack on Moscow and Mizar in Kruszyniany. They were destroyed. The reaction of Polish authorities was immediate. But of course, we can see some Islamophobic sentiment present in Polish media and unfortunately sometimes in political language. But we should remember also about the event which is going now in Poland, or which influence this kind of sentiments. I think about current hybrid war between Poland and Belarus and Russia, in which many Muslim migrants are used as the weapons, and we've got a big crisis on the Polish-Belarusian border nowadays, and it influenced also the attitudes towards Muslim migrants, unfortunately. This situation, living in Poland and being a Muslim, has forced the group to adopt some strategies. These have taken the form of either passive reaction, according to the principle, you have to wait until it goes away. There is no point to discuss about it, so people don't want to talk about the problems they need to deal with. But sometimes it also has a form represented by leaders of the group of polemics or attempts or dialogues. So, for example, Tatar's religion leaders organize meetings for the schools or in the schools when they talk about the religion, when they try to introduce the Muslim religions to the Polish society. For example, I was very surprised, it was in this year. So in Poland, we organized the Day of the Museum. It's an event organized worldwide in Europe. What means that the museum, one day, the museum are open to the wide publicity, and it's free of charge, and everybody until midnight can go into and see how the museum looks like. It's the people the publicity like this event very much. And I was a little bit surprised that in this year, Polish Tatars opened their Moscow during this night of museum in order, I talked to the Mufti because I was very interested in what was the reason for that. And he told me that it's a very good reason to introduce our religion and our society and to use the opportunity to gather as many people as we can. It's very interesting for me that it's my opinion, of course, based on my 16 research, that Tatar never said officially that they are discriminated. Instead, that they very often emphasized their very good relation with the Polish state, which also a kind of strategy. And very often remind that there were a breach for the Polish society and for the Arabic society between West and East. And in the end, to sum up, and I need also to mention that Tatars are an ethnic minority group according to Polish law that regulates ethnic life in Poland, and this status of ethnic groups gives them the state support to preserve its tradition and culture, but not religion. It's very important to say. Therefore, many of the group's initiatives can't be funded by Polish states. But they find a lot of strategy how to manage with that. But although I will finish two sentences, if you allow, the group's culture is very strongly linked to Islam, since the transition period in Poland associated with the end of the communism in 90s. We can notice a phenomenon described by anthropologists as invention of tradition. So when the groups like the Tatars were already free to establish their ethnic and cultural organizations, Tatars began to look for their traditions among other Tatars groups. For example, Crimean Tatar, Bashkirians, or other Tatars. So, for example, today, this is Tatars band, but they performs in the Crimean Tatars clothes, and they dance Crimean Tatar dances, and they sing Crimean Tatars songs, because before the war there was no tradition of Tatar ethnic life. The culture was strictly connected with the religion. So 90s and the accession of Poland to the European Union opened the way for the looking for inspiration from the other groups of Tatars, which is very interesting factor. I must go further. I will not go further. I will just say that I hope that I have been able to give you at least some insight into such broad subject in such short time. And if there are any questions, I will be very happy to answer for them. And now I give the floor to Daniel. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karolina, Dr. Zawrotna. Thank you for your insightful speeches and lectures on Tatar community in Poland. I'm actually also very glad that you were able to deliver them here at King Faisal Center. And now I would like to open the floor to questions. So if there are any questions, we have a microphone in the audience. And of course, His Royal Highness rose his hand, so please can we provide one microphone for the Prince?
Thank you for both speakers. My question is, where do we go from here on the issue of the Polish Tatars? And do they wish to continue in this, as I understand it, identity of Muslim Tatar Polish, or do they, as I heard from His Excellency, they're dying out basically in the society? So where do we go from here? If you can give us an opinion on that, we'd be very happy to do.
Okay. Would you like to start? Or
Okay,
I should start?
I can start. Thank you, Your Royal Highness, for this question. The answer is multidimensional because there are many tendencies. So I can start and let my friend to continue. As we could see in the movie, there were two different opinions. One opinion is that by the custodian in the Kruszyniany mosque, he said that we are our village comes back to life. Tatars are coming back. The religious life starts to somehow grow and be back in the Polish society and the Tatar society. So that's the one tendency. Another tendency is something that could not be seen in the movie, in the film, because we need to cut it. Otherwise, it would be too long. But there was something that is really. I thought maybe it was kind of sad because the Janeta Bogdanowicz, a very important person for the renewal of Tatar life in Podlasie, she said that when my father was asked about his identity, he said, "I'm a Tatar," or "I'm a Tatar and I'm a Pole. Then when I am asked, she said, I say I'm a Pole and I'm a Tatar. And when my children are asked, they say we are Poles. So that's why we can see that, unfortunately, I would say unfortunately, there are also probably the tendency to integrate into the Polish society. So actually, we don't know. There's another axis, but I don't know, maybe you can say.
I don't agree. I don't agree with my friend, because I think that identity is something what is very dynamic and situation, and there are a lot of factors which influence on it. So for example, today, probably yes, Magdalena is right, that now there is a tendency to stress our Polish identity, but we don't know what will happen in a year or in a 10. But my researchers shows that there's something different, so that identity of the groups from religious identity transfer to the ethnic identity, and factors which influence on it, or this Islamophobic sentiments. For example, it's not very comfortable for some people is to point stressed that we are Muslim, because it's quite difficult. I must say it. It's quite difficult situation in Poland to be Muslim. So it's better to say that we are Tatars, and this is the reason that they don't know how the society will behave towards them if they say that we are Muslim. So that's why they don't stress it very much. They're more often stressed that we are Tatar. It's my opinion.
And also, if I might add to this, there are those two trends that people are looking for their identity, and they are searching. They are, as one of the people in the movie said, they are searching for their Tatarness, and they are searching in many places. Some of them going to Arab countries in search for Islam, for the rules of Islam to implement in Poland. Some of them are using the Tatar tradition from other regions, like Crimean Tatars or Tatars from other places. So they are searching.
Because they have their own traditions, so that's why they look for. But I may put something to this. What's very important, what you said, but also this what Magdalena said also shows that Tatars are very inclusive groups. What means that they have a strong ethnic boundaries. What means that it's very difficult to be a Tatar. So they don't like people who say, oh, I discovered that my grandfather was Tatar, so it means that I'm Tatar too. They say, oh, come on, no, you just half Tatar, you are not real Tatar, or you are, I don't know how to explain in a better way. So they are a very close group, and they very often say that Tatars are Muslims and can be Muslim. Every Tatar is Muslim, but not every Muslim is Tatar. So this is the big difference.
And let's stop the answer here. So since I was asked to moderate it, I will. I don't want to be impolite, but we have other people which I believe they would like to ask their questions. So if there are any other questions, please do raise your hand, and then please go ahead, Dr. Abdul Hamid Adin.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much. It's been extremely interesting, and there are quite a lot of questions, but I think I'll just keep them to two, and then maybe we can have a discussion later. Since you mentioned Islamophobia, and the question is for both of you, now you have new Muslims coming into Poland in the 90s. So from a Polish perspective, because Islamophobia is associated with being an outsider as well. So the Tatar isn't an outsider, or is he or she, for the Polish, compared to the Muslim migrant coming in the 90s and so on. So when is Islamophobia experienced differently, or is it or maybe even more accurately, is it projected by Poles differently on whether you're a Tatar Muslim or you're a non-Tatar Muslim? So that's the first question. And the other question is, because of the kind of blend between religion and tradition and local culture, the way religion manifested with Tatars, it's a mix of their historical experience. When they had contact with Arab Muslims, what kind of tensions arose? I mean, did you see like a rise of fundamentalism, a call to purify religion from traditions and cultures, because this is also an experience which many Muslim communities, in Morocco to Indonesia faced when, the distance between religion and culture. So how, what kind of tensions are created now between Muslims who are Tatars and Muslims who are not, and etc.? Thank you.
May I? Yes, please. I will answer the pleasure, but it's quite difficult and a long topic. I will try to do it shortly. Of course, you're right. So in Polish society, the Muslim migrants are other Muslim, and the Tatars are treated as our Muslim, or sometimes real Muslims, or there are different adjectives using towards the groups. But so, and they were also treated as the bridge, as they told, as Magdalena said, between this, which can help in a dialogue between not only Poland but even Europe and the Middle East, and or more general, more wider in a Muslim community. But what's about the tension? It was very interesting. I talk about it. I asked my speakers when I conducted my research. I was interested in how it would look like in the 70s when the first Arab students visited Białystok, and so at the beginning, there's a great joy that, especially for Tatars leaders, they were so happy and they expressed their happiness that now it's the time when we start to learn our religion in a proper way. Now we will know the real Islam. So until that time, there was no possibility that now we will revile our religion life. It was extremely difficult. Extremely, it's not the best word. It was very, very important. But very quickly, we could observe some tension between these two groups, because according to Tatars, imams, Arabic imams, started to criticize them. So they didn't like some rituals as not according to the Islam. So for example, a lot of rituals from the burying ceremony was disappeared in that time as they're not according or with the Islam or against Islam. From that time, we can see that this fashion of photos putting on the gravestone stopped to be used by Tatar or over. There were many rituals which disappeared. But some conflicts began. It was based on position of the woman in Tatar society, alcohol, many others. But nowadays, from my observation, the relations are naturals, so there are not conflicts.
May I just jump into this conversation and then add something? Because you were saying, Doctor, that the relation between the Muslim community, which is arriving and Poland recently from the Arab states. With the Tatar community, it becomes more natural or more relaxed, I would say. But it is worth noting that, for instance, the Tatar community, they have their Muslim union of the Polish Tatars established in 1925, whereas the other community, which is arriving recently in Poland, they established another association which is called the League of Polish Muslims, and they are actually competing because there are many things over which they have quarrels. One of them is who is eligible to issue the halal certificates. Why? Because the money goes after the halal certification. So these are just very practical, I would say, everyday life issues they have to face. But I would also like to ask you, because since, if I may, of course, since you mentioned that the Mufti, who is of a Tatar origin in Poland, he was educated here in Saudi Arabia when it comes to Quranic law and the practice he's following. So I believe he's also trying to impose some sort of this Islamic purity in the within the Tatar community. What is the reaction of Tatar people? Because they very often mention that there is some, flavor of a folklore, Tatar folklore within Islam they practice, that they have their own way of practicing Islam. So is there any opposition coming from them to what Mufti is offering, or how does it, if you may elaborate on it a little bit?
It changed. So at the beginning, when as a young boy, a Mufti came to Poland, to Białystok, he started to introduce some new look at the for Tatar, new look at the Islam. And there were big critics from the Tatars. They didn't like it. And today, he found a balance. So he tried to find a balance. So he always said, and even we can read on the page of the Muslim religion union. So, for example, according Islam, and he used, of course, Arabic names of the ceremony on Arabic expressions, it is like that. But in Tatar tradition, we also have this kind of, for example, expression, ceremony, rituals. So he trying to combine in order to limit the tension, and I think it's my observation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I can see the hand, Maciej's hand.
Thank you very much for these very interesting presentation. I was just wondering, you were talking a little bit about the movement and identity, perhaps away from the Polish Muslim to Tatar, and part of the pan-Tatar ethnicity with Bashkirs. And I was wondering, do you think, what is the relationship between that and what is happening in Ukraine, particularly the occupation of Crimea, which is obviously the place for Tatars, and how do you think, and what the Crimean Tatars experience, and how, what were the ripple effects of that on the Polish Tatars?
Thank you for this question.
Dr. Radłowska, sorry, just if we can gather a few more questions, because it's 3 o'clock. So if there is any more questions, please do ask them, and then I will ask our panelists to address the questions. So if there is no more questions, Dr. Radłowska, the floor is yours.
With a pleasure, yeah. I will answer with pleasure, because nowadays I conduct research among Crimean Tatars, because after the annexation of Crimea Peninsula by Russia in 2014, a big migration of Crimean Tatars settled in Białystok region. It's very interesting, because they came to Białystok thanks to the Polish Tatars, or even we can say that there was kind of ethnic mobilization among the group when they knew that the Tatars, migrants, refugees, even they had no status of refugees at that time. It was very difficult because there was no war state between Russia and Ukraine at that time. The reaction of Tatars for these migrants were immediate. So they helped them to find. They helped in finding flat. They help in organizing clothes for the children, in helping in the simple daily life, like school, find a job. So it just were a very big help. And now, as I told, in Białystok, we've got the biggest migration of the Crimean Tatars in Poland. It's about 200. It's changed all the time, of course, with the war, but a lot of Tatars lived in Białystok nowadays.
And sorry, I just noticed there was one more question. Please go ahead. Can we just provide the mic for? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. If I understand right, there was some destruction of Islamic sites in the last century. Do you see in the future any chance that rebuilding of these historical and religious sites from the psyche and mentality of the people and the government? Thank you.
Yes. Of course, I hope. And yes, and I cross my finger. Yes, I hope so. That it needs to change. I'm sure it will change.
Okay, and yeah, let's hope it happens, as we say here a lot, inshallah. And let us finish here. Put a point at the end and a full stop. Thank you very much for joining the event. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Your Royal Highness, for hosting this event here at King Faisal Center. And thank you to many thanks to our distinguished guests for making it here from Poland. And I hope that this is not the last lecture of this type, and we'll see each other in the near future. Thank you so much.